This is the induction for the Bernina industrial sewing machine. After you have viewed this instruction video, you will book in with a fashion technical officer for a face-to-face practical assessment. Only once you have passed the assessment and been signed off on our records will you be able to use this machine. Bernina industrial sewing machines are a versatile machine that will give you a variety of working stitches as well as a range of decorative stitches. In this accessory box you will find different pressure feet to allow you to sew zips, buttonholes and to achieve various sewing processes for your work. There is also an instruction manual with this machine, which will give you all the information on threading the machine up, how to set the machine to achieve the different stitches, and what all the different stitches are for. We have 6 Bernina sewing machines in the department with 4 machines for you to book. Your machine will plug into a main socket close by, so check it is switched on before you begin. You will have electricity to the machine, but the machine is not activated until you turn the machine on using the green on button at the front of the machine. Never turn your machine on until you are ready to sew. Let's begin by looking at the threading process for your Bernina, bobbin and machine. First, we're going to look at how to wind your bobbin thread and how to insert it and its bobbin case into the machine. Your bobbin type is specific to the Bernina, as is the bobbin case. You must make sure you have the correct ones. The bobbin case and bobbins are slightly larger than the other global sewing machine ones we use in fashion. When using an industrial sewing machine, you must always use thread that is 100% polyester, which is a much stronger thread than domestic sewing machines use. We use Gutermann thread in the department. There are other brands you can use, the choice is yours, but be aware of the cheap imitations. Place your bobbin on the top spindle here. You have 2 thread spools at the top of the machine, so place your thread on the right-hand side one with the thread feeding from the back. Now feed your thread through the guide at the back of the machine here by the spools. There is a slit at the bottom, so you can just pull up from there to get the thread in. At the top of the machine on the left side is a little disc, and you need to wind the thread around this from front to back. You will know you have done it correctly as the thread should cross itself. Wind the thread around the bobbin from the back a few times and leave a small tail for you to hang on to. Press the bobbin down to engage the machine so you can wind the bobbin. Take care to check there is nothing in the way of your needle. Hold on to the end of the thread just to help with the start of the winding process. Now you are ready to start. Turn your machine on by pressing the green on button at the front of the machine. You will know the machine is on as the motor makes a noise and the table vibrates slightly. To operate this machine, you have a large foot plate here. Put your foot in the middle of the foot plate and gently and evenly press down, keeping your foot pressure even and not jumpy. Be aware that industrial sewing machines are a lot faster than a domestic machine, but remember you are in control. If you feel at any time your machine is going too fast, take your foot off the pedal. You have control of the machine, it does not have control of you. As the machine begins to wind the thread, just hold on to it for a few seconds until it takes the thread, then let go. Now you should be winding evenly and filling the bobbin with thread. If your control of the machine is too uneven, the thread will not wind evenly and so will not be usable. You need a nice even wind like this. Once you have finished filling your bobbin, take your foot off the foot pedal and stop the machine using the red off button at the front of the machine. Release the bobbin by pulling the white lever at the side of the bobbin and snip your thread. Never leave your machine running when you are not sewing. Always turn it off. To insert your bobbin into the bobbin case, first make sure that the thread is coming from the top of the bobbin anti-clockwise. Place it into the case and pull the thread through a small slit here until you have the thread at the end and let it go into the front groove. You should have gone through the tension disc, and if you are careful you can check it is in correctly by holding the bobbin case by the thread over your hand. If it stays in place, you've done it correctly. If it falls out, then do it again. To insert the bobbin case into the machine, you will open the plate by your needle about 2 centimetres. This is the only view of the housing you will have. Do not force it open any more than that. And if it is very loose, do not pull it off the machine. Ask the technical officer to fix it if you have pulled it off. Unfortunately, the housing for the bobbin case is at the back of the machine here and is impossible to actually see. Inserting the bobbin case into the machine is very awkward and may take practice to get it right. You will have to insert it using your left hand, so place the thread over the back of your hand to keep it from getting caught in the machine. Keeping the lever at the back of the bobbin case open, place your middle finger by the bobbin to prevent it from coming out of the bobbin case. Now try and line up this first screw head on the side of the bobbin case with the edge of the metal at the side of the bobbin housing. You will need to twist your wrist to do this. Take the bobbin case under the machine. Open up the plastic cover underneath to reach the bobbin housing. There is a metal spike sticking out from the housing, and you need to line up the bobbin case parallel to this, so it will go into the central hole of the bobbin. Do not let go of the lever until the bobbin case is in place, checking the screw head is lining up too. You will know it is right, as it should make a satisfactory clunk noise and fit in the space perfectly. It may take a few goes to get this right, if you have not done this before. Once the bobbin is in place, we now need to thread up the machine. Take the thread you have at the top of the right-hand spool and remove it, making sure it has come out of the thread guide you used for winding the bobbin. Now place it on the left side spool. There is another thread guide at the back of the machine on the left side directly below the top slit. Put the thread up so it goes inside this guide. Now take the thread and guide it down the front slit, making sure the thread feeds on the right side of the tension disc here. Loop the thread under the large metal guide and back up to the top of the needle arm behind the safety guard. If you cannot see this arm, rotate the brown wheel on the right side of the machine towards you, and this will bring the arm into view. There are 2 holes on the arm. Feed the thread from the right side through either of the holes. You will notice there is a safety guard across the needle position. In order to continue the threading, you need to position the guard open. However, if your pressure foot on the machine is down, you need to raise it first before you move the guard. If you do not do this, you can damage and ultimately snap off the guard, so please check first. On an industrial sewing machine, you raise the pressure foot using your knee against the pressure pad under the machine here. By firmly pushing the pad to the right, it will click in place and the pressure foot will rise. To release the pressure foot down, press the pad again towards the right and it will click back in place. Once the pressure foot is up and you have opened the needle guard, you can now feed the thread around the guide hook at the side of the needle. Now thread the needle through the eye from front to back with the thread. To raise the bobbin thread through to the top of the machine, you need to take hold of the top thread in your left hand, and by rotating the brown wheel on the right of the machine towards you, take the needle down into the machine. Keep rotating the wheel until the needle returns back up and reaches its top position. You should now be able to pull through the bobbin thread by pulling on the top thread. If it seems stuck, you have either not rotated the needle to its very top position, or you have incorrectly housed your bobbin case. If that is the case, you need to check your bobbin case position and that you have not got the thread caught underneath. Once both threads are through to the top of the machine, place them through the slit in your pressure foot and guide them around to the back of the foot. Close the metal plate by the side of the needle and return the needle guard closed. Your machine should now be correctly threaded up. Let's now look at what the Bernina sewing machine settings are and what the different dials do. At the top of the machine, you will see a diagram of all the different stitches this machine can do. They are numbered from 0 to 20. At the side here you will see a lever. This is how you select the stitch you need. By pushing the lever firmly to the right and then up, you will see a little red square following you. When you reach the allocated number of the stitch you want, release the lever and the red square will indicate where you have stopped and which stitch you have selected. If you are selecting 0, which is the setting for straight stitch and zigzag, then the second lever on the right should be in the 0 position as well. If the stitch number you have selected is anything from 1 to 20, then you need to move the lever up to the 1 to 20 position. If you do not do this, then you will not get the stitch you have selected, but just a zigzag stitch. When you want to return the stitch selection to a lower number, push the lever out to the right again and bring it down to the correct position. Only release the lever into the left-hand side when you reach the number you want. Also, on the top of the machine, you will see a dial to the left of the stitch selector with a plus and minus on it. This is the dial that adjusts the tension on the machine. It is best not to touch this. If the tension on your machine stitches are not correct on either the top or the bottom of your fabric, please contact the technical officer to adjust this for you. There is also a thread cutter on the top here. Now let us look at the dials on the side of this machine. This top one has different zigzag symbols across the top and is for adjusting your stitch width. 0 is no stitch width and therefore gives a straight stitch. Anything from 1 to 4 is a varying size of width for a zigzag stitch, 4 being the widest setting. To set these, you rotate the side of the dial around so the white line lines up with the setting you require. In the middle of this dial is a bar that adjusts the needle position on the machine. Most stitches will need the needle to be in the middle of your pressure foot, so the bar should be in the middle. If you need the needle to be set either to the right or left, move the bar accordingly, but always check that the needle is out of the machine before you move it. This will primarily be for sewing zips in conjunction with using a different pressure foot. The dial below is for making buttonholes. It is a step-by-step setting to create the buttonhole. How to create a buttonhole will be covered in a separate video. All you need to be aware of is that you need the dial to be set on 0. The bottom dial has a variety of symbols with different dashed lines, with numbers beside them which indicate the stitch length in millimetres. You need to rotate this dial to adjust your stitch length. 0 will be a no stitch length, so would not create a stitch, and 6 being the longest stitch length this machine will produce. 2.5 to 3 millimetres is an average stitch length for your general sewing, and although this machine numbering is a bit vague, the line in between 2 and 4 is about right. There is another symbol above the numbers here which represents making the machine sew backwards. When you begin sewing and when you finish sewing, you need to fix your stitches so they do not come undone. In order to do that, you sew backwards and forwards over a few stitches. To make this machine sew backwards, you lift the dial lever up as far as it goes. Now hold it in position while you sew. Do not let go. When you want to sew forwards again, then release the lever back down. You will find this is a quick motion and you will get used to it and using it in one fell swoop. On the machine bed, just below the dials, is a rocker switch with 2 settings. For normal sewing, the switch should be in this position. If you want to free embroider using this machine, then you need to drop the feed dog teeth, which are below the pressure foot, and feed your fabric through the machine when sewing. With the pressure foot up, push the setting to this setting here, and the dog feet will drop down into the machine. The large brown wheel at the side of the machine is connected to the needle arm, and as you saw before, allows you to move the needle in and out of the machine. There is an arrow on the side above this wheel which indicates which way you should always move the wheel. In this case, you always rotate towards you, not away from you. Finally, you have a light on this machine which you can adjust to help you see more clearly when sewing. The on-off button for this is at the top of the light. When you want to begin sewing, check your machine is set up correctly. Check your stitch selection is showing the right stitch number. So for straight stitch, I want the stitch selection on 0. Check the lever to the right is also on the 0 setting. Now go to the stitch width dial. As a straight stitch has no stitch width, I want this dial to also be on 0. Check the position of the needle is in the middle of the pressure foot, so the bar in the middle of the stitch width dial should also be in the middle. For general straight stitch sewing, I need to have a 3mm stitch length, so check this dial is correctly set up on number 3. On your machine, you should always have a general sewing pressure foot on the machine. This is number 0. For some sewing techniques, you will need to change your pressure foot, and these are kept in the accessory box. Your instruction manual will tell you which pressure foot to use, and they each have a different number. To change a foot, make sure the pressure foot is raised up. Now open the needle guard, and on the left side of the foot, towards the back, is a small metal hook. Release this backwards and the foot can now drop down and off the machine. Always place the foot you have removed into the accessory box and select the appropriate foot. To secure this on the machine, it is easiest to guide the hole at the top of the foot from the side and then push it up over the housing point. You can push up the needle arm as it is flexible and can be moved to give extra space, especially if some feet are quite large. Now return the side hook in place so it curves over the top of the foot. You have now changed your pressure foot from one other than the general sewing 0 foot. If you've done this, always replace it back on the machine when you have finished at the end of your session. Place your fabric under your pressure foot. You will see some lines along the side of the foot which are there to help to keep your sewing lines straight. They are measurements in centimetres, so if you are using a 1 centimetre seam allowance, then use this line to guide your fabric. Close the needle guard and lower the pressure foot down. Now you are ready to sew. Wrap the threads around your finger just to control the initial stitches and turn your machine on. Slowly and evenly put pressure on the foot plate and begin to sew. Release the threads from your finger after the first couple of stitches. So take your time and get used to the speed of the machine. It is you that controls the speed. You can make the machine go slowly and fast with the pressure you put through the foot plate. Practice sewing in straight lines first and get used to sewing backwards and forwards by using the appropriate dial. When you have finished sewing, turn your machine off. Bring the pressure foot up and open the needle guard, making sure the needle is out of the fabric to its highest point. Pull your fabric to one side and snip your threads. Once you are confident operating the machine and sewing with straight stitch, you can progress to other sewing processes and stitch types, which we will cover in other fashion videos. Remember, always turn your machine off when you have finished sewing.